So War Tycoon's naval combat has been steadily improving over the recent updates by giving us features like the chaff, the sonar, radars, and much more. However, I don't think the ships are quite perfect just yet. Therefore, in today's video, guys, I'd like to go over some things which the naval vehicles definitely need to have added, and all of the ideas which will be provided in today's video were actually given to me by my Discord server. So thank you all so much to you guys, and this video is just going to be the same as my previous one, which went over some changes which the tanks need. Let's just jump right into it. So firstly, we're going to be starting up with the better cameras for ships. And this is a pretty big problem right now, and the reason why this suggestion was made is because of the way in which the aiming system works for ships. So for example, the cannon of the USS Independence is placed on the right, however we are facing the opponent with like more of a middle angle, which means that the bullet isn't actually going to end up going to where we want it. Therefore, what I actually propose for us to have is different types of camera systems. So you could have a camera system from the gun itself, or you could have a camera system from the middle. So you basically get to choose which one you want to control, because right now the only way to actually hit accurate shots, and sometimes not even, is going to be aiming like this. You gotta literally move your ship in a perfect angle to be able to actually get your shots at least semi-accurate, which is really annoying. Now the next thing which I like to see for ships and just a lot of naval vehicles is going to be improved interiors. I know that they have pretty good interiors for things like the USS Zumwalt or maybe even the Typhoon class, however there are a lot of vehicles which are missing their interiors, such as of course the USS Independence. Majority of its interior doesn't even exist. So I'd really want to see a lot of naval vehicles which have a pretty big interior in real life to actually receive that feature. And of course, with bigger interiors, this would mean more features, such as, of course, for one, being able to actually spawn some vehicles in the interior itself, like the rib or the jet ski, which has been requested for the Zumwalt, but also the ability to land helicopters or VTOL planes on the ships would also be kinda cool. Now the next thing which I'd like to see is for the vehicle drones to receive some types of updates, because right now you have this drone at the back which basically spawns when you press T, which just follows your ship, doesn't have much range. With all honesty, this drone just doesn't do anything. It's literally just useless. However, what I'd like to see for these drones themselves is to actually be able to be controlled from maybe a gunner seat or maybe another seat inside of the vehicle's interior. So for example, if I sit in here, I will be able to control this drone right here, almost like a UAV, which would almost kind of add a lot of teamwork to these vehicles, because there are a lot of people which kind of just show their friends the game for the first time, right? And of course, these people cannot really spawn vehicles. Well, how about actually make them useful through being able to enter your interior and control a drone? I think something like this could be incredibly cool. Now the next thing which I'd like to see over here is going to be lockable doors for ships, because right now it is so easy to board ships, and that is almost like the #1 way of countering them. It is really annoying when somebody just enters your ship and just shoots you without you not even knowing a lot of the time. I think it would be kind of cool if you actually had power boxes which you could destroy, so you could at least delay the person from being able to enter the ship to some extent. I think a lot of people would really appreciate this, since the reason that you actually end up going in a ship in this game is to play ship combat, not to be forced into ground 1v1s constantly. Now something which we still haven't received for quite a long time is skins on naval assets, such as the ships, but also the submarines. It is a little bit annoying, but I assume the reason to why that's the case is because they probably haven't even developed a system for this just yet, since it took them quite a while to even add skins to helicopters, so I do expect it to take quite a while for them to do the same for submarines and ships. Now the next thing which I'd like to see is for a lot of ships to receive almost like an artillery system added to the cannon. So for example, you would have two modes for the main cannon that you could shoot forward just like you do right now, however another one would be to aim like an artillery. And keep in mind that I believe the best way to balance this would be to not give these ships as high of a range for the artillery as something like the K9 for example, since of course the K9 is specifically designed for this role, so you want to kind of keep it good in that spot. However, if you were to give it like a range up to maybe somewhere like here, I believe that could be kind of cool, since you could actually engage vehicles which are hiding behind hills or just hiding behind the base, since most of the time, the second that they hide, there is nothing you can do as a ship, since you're just not tall enough and just gonna end up hitting the environment like a lot of the time. It's kinda annoying. Now the next thing which I'd like to see is naval kamikaze drones, and I believe something like this is a little bit more niche, however it will actually give the ships a little bit more counters as a person that just simply plays on the ground, because if you don't have any vehicles or you're just stuck on the ground, there is almost no ways for you to effectively be able to counter ships unless you specifically board them, which a lot of the cases will just not end up happening since you don't have a vehicle to board them with. So that's why I believe just being able to spawn naval kamikaze drones for perhaps maybe an airdrop, and every kamikaze drone will do like a set 10% of damage to a ship. I think something like this could be kind of good, since at least in some way you would be able to engage the opponent. Now moving into the next thing, I have the anti-ship plane changes, and this one is pretty interesting, and I'm semi 50-50 on this suggestion, and the reason to why that's the case is because they suggested two things to be added. One of them would be in a way to transform the anti-ship missiles into fire and forget missiles, and the reason why that's the case is because right now you need to literally lock these missiles, which the locking process isn't just incredibly long, and if you get close to the person, you just end up dying. That's how long it normally takes you to lock on. So either way, using anti-ship missiles in this game is kind of like a lose-lose situation. However, turning them into fire and forgets could allow you to fire them from slightly further away and just being able to do some decent damage. Now the next thing which this person also requested with this is a set amount of damage taken to every single vehicle through percentage when you hit them with an anti-ship missile. So for example, a Fairmount on the USS Submarine will be taking the exact same damage from the same anti-ship missile across the board, just to make it fair, because if the damage isn't too high in this game for a lot of the cases, you might just not end up harming the vehicle at all. Because for example, you could harm a lower health ship, however you wouldn't be able to harm a much higher health ship. So what I believe would be nice is just being able to do like a set percentage of damage. However, being able to fire and forget missile and having that set percent of damage both at the same time would be a little bit OP. So I feel like it would be best if we pick either one of these options instead of picking two. Now the next thing which I'd like to see is a slight submarine nerf, and this one might be a little bit controversial for some people. However, what I'd like to see perhaps being added is to stop the people from being able to place claymores and C4s in the door. I believe it is completely okay to be able to place claymores and C4s around hallways, since you could trap hallways. However, whenever you try to board someone's submarine, a lot of the cases, so you could literally just place a claymore and then it's basically over. There's nothing that can be done, because immediately you end up teleporting on top of the claymore and you basically die. So there is nothing you can do to board someone's submarine, and they're completely safe from that from happening. I believe that's a little bit too cheesy, and there's literally no ways to counter it, so there's just no point of boarding submarines at all. You just die the second you want to do that. So if they could at least take away the ability to place claymores and C4s near the door, I believe something like that could really help. Now the next thing which I'd like to see is the ability to toggle AI turrets, and what I mean by this is currently we kind of have the CRAM on the USS Independence and the AI turrets on the USS Sumult, which of course they're AI, we cannot really use them on our own. However, what I'd like to see is for the gunner itself to be able to switch to this type of gun, since a lot of the cases you have things like the DeLoreans trying to attack your boat and just get on it, and the issue is there is literally no way of countering it except for trying to dodge the person. However, if you could kind of switch to the CRAM or the AI turrets themselves through the driver, I believe that could be really nice, since you could actually counter these people from doing this thing in the first place. Plus the AI turrets and the CRAM ain't even that OP, so this damage is kind of balanced, and you really need to be accurate with it if you want to be able to counter a DeLorean player. And now the last suggestion which I have is the ability to have an alarm system for ships whenever you're being boarded. So for example, if somebody that isn't from your faction is going to end up opening this door or breaking the door, whichever option they prefer to add, you would get an alarm, so you at least know that there's a person on your ship. I think something like this could be kind of nice, and it would add a lot more of a realism effect to the ships as well. But anyway, for the time being, that's basically all I have for you guys in today's video. Do let me know in the comment section down below what you think about these changes, which ones you'd like to see the most. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will be doing another video for helicopters, perhaps. I'll see you guys in the next one.